Hello, and welcome to the Wonkette Weekend Live Chat. I'm Robin. This is the lovely and talented Stephen Robinson.
Hi, Robin. How are you?
I'm swell. How are you?
I'm okay. We've so w- we've all been following this Clarence Thomas storyline, and I've just trying to understand what's going on.
In terms of Nazi memorabilia, really? Is that um oh, you want me to explain it? You've been covering it. I haven't been covering it. Uh,
Yeah, it's
I mean, he's got a sugar daddy.
yeah.
Most people
I
get
mean,
it up after college.
I'm sorry. It's just I'm sorry for my confusion because that's what broke me. If I could just like I was going along with this, it's like corruption is no big. Corruption's how this stuff goes, right?
Hmm.
The Supreme Court is corrupt. We understand that. That's been a case since 2000. I think that most of us realized, oh, okay, well, you guys gotta do what you want to do. Um, but it is escalating the Nazi stuff, and we can get into that. But I'm sorry. So it did. I just want to clarify. It broke me when this guy bought his mother's house, and now his mother's still living in it. Like that's a kept guy. Like it is sort of the gaslighting, right, of everything. It's just like we've all you and I live in the world, and we see. So like, and I've worked someplace where oh, that rich old guy, that young man who's an editor here who comes to work every once in a while and goes on vacations with the boss publisher
Hmm.
here, and he's lives in this nice apartment that where'd you get this apartment? Oh, my boss has a spare apartment in the building, and I'm cat sitting for him.
Well, being a
Oh,
rent boy.
yeah, like okay. Well, we all kind of know, right?
Mhm.
That's how this is
Yeah, no,
rolling. It's the
it's a
mid
very
90s.
Ashley
Yeah.
Madison kind of situation he's got going on here.
But this is just everyone's sort of trying to explain away what is clearly like, and I always thought the Democrats could do a great job of going forward with the idea that this is not how normal people operate, because I feel just like, oh, we're just friends and everything. And I found that it's sort of, and you can, I mean, speak to this with your own friends. There's always that sense of sometimes discomfort if you're like, oh, I'm going to buy your ticket for something or whatever. I mean, as a gift sometimes or whatever, but people have I know as I grew up, there's a sense of pride. So it's sort of like, oh, Robin's between jobs. We don't want to make her feel bad right now, but we want to go hang out and go see this thing. Let's try to spin this in a way that doesn't make it seem like what it is, because that's perhaps a very middle class thing, right? And this idea is like, oh well, I'm allowed to have friends who take me to their private hunt, rich,
Yeah.
hunt poor people island. And keep in mind, he's also this guy's probably rich. It's not just vacationing in a Walmart parking lot or the
Hmm.
world's most dangerous game island. They could also He could also be like, here's a great resort in Hawaii, and just fly yourself over there, coach, and you can stay at my resort. And but it just goes over beyond the levels of normal human behavior. And just to see people try to rationalize it has, I would say, broken me in its shamelessness. But
I mean, to be fair, like, yeah, no, we all like have friends who have way more money than we do sometimes. Um, but that's like it really is like a very, very huge difference. And I mean, they probably have things in common. They're both terrible people. Like, so, it's not like they don't have things to talk about. Like, they're like, I'm a monster and I'm also a monster, and they have that to bond on. But like, It's still like a thing like where you know what it is. Like there are people who get along like just great with their sugar daddies. That doesn't mean
Yeah,
they're not a sugar daddy. Like, yeah, no, get that bag, but like,
I've worked in corporate America,
like
and for folks who've worked in corporate America, it's kind of the business client relationship. You might like the boss, you might like someone who flies you off for a week. You understand what this is. This is going to be a week someplace. Adam Conover's written about this as well, or had a video on it, like they did with the pharmaceutical industry, where it's like they'd fly out doctors, show them a great time, wine and dine them. Then at the end, it's like, hey, why don't you push this medication to your patients? And so
yeah,
everyone kind of knows
that's like
what the deal is. It is a clear client relationship because nothing is free, which again, these are Republicans. One of their core philosophies, I would say, is that nothing is free. The whole reason, you can't, literally, these are the people who say, if a starving child gets a free lunch, he'll think that the government owns him, or
yeah.
he'll think that he'll feel entitled. Like,
Or he'll
but
be an entitled brat, which like entitled, like I've said this before, entitled brats do pretty freaking well for themselves.
but a
We're
billionaire,
doing better in life than entitled brats. I can't think of anyone.
but this billionaire who became my friend after became a Supreme Court justice is just, giving me the
Yeah,
ultimate in free lunches, and I'm not going to be entitled. I'm not going to be entitled to this lifestyle and thus do whatever he wants me to do. How dare you assume that? Whereas, uh, making it easier for single moms to buy milk.
yeah,
God forbid we do that, because that's just so anti-American and anti the worker instinct. So the idea that he doesn't know what's going on and know what the expectation is, or that it is clearly a business client relationship. And I want to clarify, the people who are defending, being paid a lot to defend this relationship, know damn well what a business client relationship is like. They've been in those situations. They know how it's different than
hmm
friendships, and how um it's just absurd. I mean, and who knows, maybe I'm a bad friend because I haven't bought a house for your sister. I'm
yeah.
sorry. If
I
I were a
mean,
better friend.
I haven't bought a house for my sister either, but you know,
You're a
I
bad
accept
sister.
presents always. I am always open to that. Um,
It's just so, and nothing's gonna happen. I mean, he enough knows that it's bad that he won't talk about it. Like he didn't disclose it, but nothing can happen. I mean, I think Dick Durbin has done the thing of feeling kind of like, oh well, Chief Justice Robert should look into this and call a committee of people to look, like, not, well, no, they're just going to laugh in your face. These people have such ultimate power, and they can just sort of laugh at you. I think it's so interesting how these folks feel, they whine about the idea that that Americans would protest them or write articles about them. And it's like, well, you are very powerful people. Like, this would be a major story for a small town mayor, right? Like,
mhm.
and like the mayor of Wasilla or something, like the mayor of some random town does not have the power of a Supreme Court justice. These are people who are like, okay, you don't get to have bodily autonomy anymore, and that should be it. Then they can go to their island. Is not Does not seem in any way like how democracy should work. At least it should be, okay, well, we're going to get protested, or people going to write articles about who's been pitching us and moving us towards
But
a certain way.
here's the thing: no matter what it is, they'll all like their reaction to everything. If it's them doing it, is me. What's the big deal? What are you talking about? They're never going to say, that actually does sound pretty bad. Like that is not how they operate. They will come up with a reason for it. Um, like they're not ever going to say, yeah, no, that's fucked up. That's
So
not
you
your
don't agree with Dick Durbin's strategy then, or Chris any of of Democrats who are saying, who are sort of appealing to Republicans, and that we should all agree that this is wrong, because that seems pointless to me. Like, that's not going
Yeah, they're
to.
never gonna all I mean, you can do the like that as a bit, but you have to know it's actually a bit. Like you can't actually be under the impression that they actually have some kind of conscience or are going to like say that they think it's messed up. No, they're going to be, no, this is fine. And as long as they keep saying this is fine, people will go along with them.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Cryptek had written what you see before. I mean, the problem with focusing on uh, Chief Justice Roberts is that he has not actually potentially broken any laws about reporting or anything. And so he can just say F you, or can just do one of his pointless investigations like he did for the Supreme Court leak for the Dobbs opinion. Um, Thomas, it does seem, has come as close as you can get to breaking the law on these things. I mean, for these
Yeah.
efforts, disclosure, so forth. And I think they should press that on him. I think they should make his life a living hell. He's a terrible person and
Yeah.
deserves it, but he's tried to clearly cash out on his he's offering proximity to power. So the guy, the Nazi, his buddy, the Nazi collector, because of course Clarence Thomas would be friends with the Nazi collector. I do want to say that people who, it's a problem sometimes on the mainstream left, liberals and moderates alike, will be like, "Oh, Clarence Thomas hates himself, and he's this black Supreme Court justice who's around all these other white people." But for the longest time, and I think even now, arguably, in the levers of power, in the rooms of power, regardless of party, it's still a bunch of old white guys.
Mhm.
So it's not like, it's like sort of the West Wing, where the only black person there was the guy who was the president's butler, or young butler, or his body man, I think was the term. I would have insisted upon butler.
Body man. I want one of those. Where do I get
you
one of those?
you would have, I think you would have liked Dooley Hill. So
Oh, I love Julie Hill. Like I would
yes, he
marry
was the
him.
body.
Oh,
He was the body man for the president.
yeah,
Yes.
no, he was also, I believe, in the Tap Dance Kid. One of the productions. I think that was the production that I saw when I was a kid. He's a wonderful tap dancer, and he was in Psych, which is like one of my all-time favorite shows.
Yes, that
That
he did that
yeah.
afterward. I like
Sorry,
his
I
shows,
get
but
very excited about people I like.
um he didn't do any tap dancing on the West Wing, fortunately. Similar of how I was very frustrated there was no musical episode of Law and Order when you had both Jesse L. Martin
Yeah,
and
no, we have
Lenny
discussed it.
Briscoe. That was right there. Uh, but that reminds me, you had sort of compared this whole Clarence Thomas thing to Phantom of the Opera, which I
Well,
think
it's
is
closing today.
closing today.
So yeah, no, last performance of Phantom of the Opera ever. Um I was actually listening to it this morning, which I don't think I've done since elementary school, because Andrew Lloyd Webber was very not cool when for musical theater kids. Sondheim is cool. Like, there's the Sondheim kids and the Andrew Lloyd Webber kids, and the Sondheim kids are cooler. Let's just be real. These are normal things that people think about and understand. um, but yeah, no, in the Phantom of the Opera, they've got the guy sing the Phantom, who is teaching Christine how to sing and basically being her behind the scenes tutor. And in a certain way, we've got a similar situation going on here, except I don't know that I want to actually hear Clarence Thomas sing.
I think he would have no
The
singing
angel is
voice.
something.
He probably has no singing voice. It's just that is often a challenge in musicals. So you have like someone who is a horrible, soulless person, but you don't. Obviously, you
Yeah.
need to maintain the idea that everyone sings well, so that person does still sing
So you just
well.
make him like a super baritone. A lot
Yes,
of the time.
the badass baritone,
Yeah. Who is always
um,
gonna be my favorite. I like the evil guy and I like the baritone. So like bring on Javert. But
well, not that. What was that was the problem in the musical, the film version of Les Miserables, right? Like he could not
it
sing;
was
it
so
was Russell
wrong.
Crowe.
It was so wrong. I will never forgive them for that. I've never seen it. I will never forgive them for it. Um that is it was there aren't even words. There aren't even words. I'm still mad about it. So let's not
Uh,
even.
but I mean, like with Thomas, so that guy, so Harlan Crow, and I'd covered. You were right. I'd covered this about how he was collecting Nazi memorabilia, and people were defending it, including Ben Shapiro and Jonah Goldberg, who are themselves Jewish and who have, um, you know, not perhaps been as generous, the benefit of the doubt about anti-Semitism to say Omar or anyone else. Like she doesn't even own Nazi stuff. She just said some dumb stuff. But these guys actually literally, this guy actually owns like Nazi trinkets, which for in every movie ever made is sort of the tell that someone is a Nazi. Like that is how we know they're a Nazi
Yeah.
because they have Nazi stuff. And then like they were
It's
saying, oh,
usually
this is
one of the
just
better signs. Like if
that,
you were in a movie and you're being on a date in a movie and you're like, oh, this person's starting to seem a little bit weird, and then you go to their house and they've got like an entire room full of Nazi memorabilia, you realize, oh, I'm about to get murdered. Like that's, I think, a fairly, like, it's a trope to some degree. I don't know that I've actually seen it in anything, but it
yes,
sounds like a trope. Like, oh, this person is definitely going to murder me and or like drill my teeth until I die.
yes. I think it was Cordelia who did that in one episode of Angel. She's in a room, she looks around, and it was like, wait, there's
Yes.
direct sunlight, no mirrors, you're a vampire. um, yeah, and the argument is like he just is he loves history so much that he collects this stuff, like signed copies of. So it's not just I want to remember that Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark existed, but no, I want a signed program. I'm gonna hunt for the signed program of it. It's like, well, no, I mean that's a lot of effort, and no human being has. Could you think of things that you really feel strongly about that you dislike, Robin? Do you have that iconography in your home? Like that's just not.
I
Who do
have
you
weird shit.
collect?
I'm not gonna lie. Like, I think sort of my vibe in general is if someone finds a terrible thing, they're like, oh my God, Robin would love that. Again, it's why I own a copy of Ben Stein's Ludes,
Mhm.
um, A Ballad of the Drug and the Dream, which is the funniest name for any book that has ever happened. I also have a poster of Charles J. Guiteau's phrenology chart. These are weird things that I own. I don't own things by like with like Nazi shit on them. No one's if people think of you and they're like, "Oh, like I see something with a giant swastika on it, I'm thinking of this person," then, you, it's not the person you want to be, you know? Like I don't mind that
Yeah.
people are like, "Oh, here's a terrible mug that says volunteer fireman. Robin would probably want this." That seems fine.
Yeah, that's not
If
kitsch.
someone's like,
It's
hey, here's a bust of Hitler, this guy would want something. That's not fine.
yeah, it seems overtly yeah, it's like sort of overtly evil. And a lot of the stolen valor. So these countries were dictators and the people had risen up, the oppressed people, and toppled the statues, and then those were smuggled out of the country so a rich creep can buy them and then
Yeah.
put them in his garden. But it's like, well, you aren't the person who did this. You didn't put this in a museum or something. Um, so that guy is sort of you know, a it kind of goes back to the idea of why we have billionaires and the weirdness of it, because
Yeah.
it's one of those things of like he I don't, and I'm sure Republicans correct me on this. I can't think of a way that Harlan Crow has improved our lives. It's not like the great movie Kate and Leopold, where Hugh Jackman's character invents the elevator. So when he disappears, the world no longer has elevators. Um, except that makes no sense. I'm sorry, I'm going to go on a rant
I've
here.
not seen that movie, and I was not
Th-
aware that was the plot of that movie.
that is the plot. So Kate and Leopold, for those who have not seen it, I saw it in a movie theater because I was in my 20s and had nothing better to do with my time. And hey, Meg Ryan's in something. I will see it. So he is a guy who invents elevators. He gets brought back to the present where he falls in love with Meg Ryan's character. But it doesn't change the world to the point where it no longer has elevators. It's just that people forget how to use elevators.
I mean, been there.
Yes, everyone is like robbing a few drinks in on a Saturday night and can no longer operate an elevator. Also, like, if you didn't have elevators, that would fundamentally change the skylines, how buildings are created, and everything. That was not the dumbest thing about that movie. Alas, it was that Meg Ryan decides to go back into the past when she would have no rights and potentially die in childbirth to be with Hugh Jackman. Look, he's a handsome guy, but I never go back.
I'm like,
but I just don't go back in the past. If you're a minority, it's like it's always worse in the past. Don't go back. But she's really hot. No, don't go back. But this guy, Harlan Crow, did not create that. Like, he doesn't, like so many billionaires, there's not like, here's the thing
that he did.
This is what we use in our lives that drastically improves our lives daily, or even his great grandfather. And we could talk about inheritance or something, but it's like, oh, Harlan refrigerator. Okay, well, that guy, his family's gonna coast on, not having foodborne illnesses and people dying from that for a while. Okay, instead, it's just like, I don't know.
Like investments? I don't know, like.
Well, it's akin to slavery, right? So you are profiting off the labors of others. It's just sort of, I have a great idea, but I have the money to buy labor from, or just to kidnap Black people, or I'm going to buy at a very low rate labor from Irish people or Italians, and then they were going to produce this thing for me, and I'm going to make a lot of money. We're in the idea business.
Yeah.
But yes, what the being kept aspect of Clarence Thomas, I just find, his it's like, you ever watch the show Celebrity IOU, the Property Brothers? So this is a program where a celebrity says, oh, my assistant, my assistant Robin's wonderful. She has great stuff. Her house is not great. So as a surprise, she doesn't know about this. So she's going to go on vacation, and we're going to now go and remodel her house. The first issue there, of course, is that it would be illegal for your boss to come into your home and remodel. Like, you have to, for permits.
That's like, didn't the Manson family do that? Like, at one point, like, they went into people's houses and rearranged furniture? Like, that was a thing, right?
A friend of mine who watches the shows and is in fact a lawyer. So my friend says, yes, it's not legal in any way. Obviously, the homeowner is fully aware that this is happening, has signed all the requisite paperwork.
Yeah, no.
But it just isn't it much more exciting that it's a surprise? Like, she's telling me, don't you want to be lied to? And it's like, I guess the viewer does. They decided the viewer would rather be lied to. They'd rather believe that the boss said, "Hey, Robin, why don't you go see your sister for a week? And while you're away, I'm going to remodel your house. And when you come back,
Yeah, no,
it'll be awesome."
that sounds terrible. Like, what about all of my stuff? Like,
That's all. I mean, the property brothers take care of it. There's arbitrary deadlines because it's like, well,
no, I don't like any of this.
Robin
Um,
will be away for a week. When she comes back, we need to have their entire kitchen gutted and redone. And your celebrity boss is picking out your fixtures. Like, oh, this is what Robin would like, and it's all very touching. I
I swear to God, I did not know that was a show. Like, I did
it's
not know.
it is awesome. When your assignment after this, Robin, is to go and watch Celebrity IU, specifically the Drew
I'm still
Barrymore
trying to catch up
episode.
on Vanderpump Rules, okay? Like,
But it feels, my
no.
point being, as I revealed myself to be a very dull middle-aged man, was that it just felt like Celebrity IOU. Like, this guy owns, like, Clarence, like, oh, Clarence, such a reliable, helpful Supreme Court justice. So while he's away, I'm gonna, like, his mom's house needs to be remodeled. I'm gonna remodel it. And the property, but they're all choosing, Harlan Crow says choosing fixtures. Um, where did you put the, yes? Um, that's all taken care of, my friend.
Yeah.
They all of that is,
Yeah, no, but like, yeah, sorry, I'm like really still stuck on this. Like, what if they're like, I don't, like, they're just gonna like go through all your like drawers?
well, because again, legally, all of this stuff is like, and the
Yeah,
celebrity is nowhere near it. You've been told what's going to happen. You've most likely approved all the fixtures yourself, or at least gotten the idea, and whatever, and then you packed everything yourself, and take it away.
yeah,
It's not
like you
random
don't just
people.
like leave your like, oh, whoops, my sex swing is out. People have those. I don't know. I'm just saying it would be weird. Like, people suddenly come over your house and like,
But
I'm gonna
it's just
get that.
it's just like a very good employee thing to do. As
Yeah,
a friend, again, I felt like a bad friend because I was like, I've not remodeled the homes of any
yeah,
of my
no,
friends' relatives. I've not bought their mother's house and then remodeled it for them. And clear, like, this is all, for those of you who are cynical, you might think that this is a clear money laundering thing. So he buys the house, which has no historic value. It's not like a Nazi used to live there or anything.
yeah,
It's just his, poor mother. And they bought the house. Um, and, from Thomas, arguably there's no evidence that it was at market rate. So at that point, it's a way of giving him money that
yeah.
looks like a reasonable transaction. And then he's letting his mother stay there rent free, even though he owns the house. And obviously, it will probably go back to Thomas later. It is not a normal relationship, which is not something you should do. It's not what normal politicians do because it looks weird, and it's not what normal people do because it looks weird. And so, Supreme
I mean,
Court just
I
probably
know
shouldn't do
some
it.
people who do that, but it's like you know, it's what they do for their job.
Yeah, again, it goes back to a business, like, but it's not flipping. It's not sort of like whenever they said that he had with these properties, it's like he has nothing of value to sell. Again, he's not like
Mhm.
any of his other peers in the Supreme Court prior to Jackson, where he has no family wealth. He grew up poor, grew up whatever. He has nothing of, there's nothing of interest he would have to sell or give to this
Mhm.
billionaire who collects, Stalin statues. I think I would, I just for the sake of argument, and again,
He's putting out in one way or another. Like,
look, I grew up, I love, a very nice subdivision in Greenville, South Carolina. My home is of no historical value or interest to a billionaire. So if someone's buying my family,
Yeah.
the Robinson ancestral home, it's probably something shady going on. Um,
Yeah, no. There, I mean, it's definitely like clearly nothing good is going on there. And like the fact that no one even bothered to ever say, like, hey, maybe he should not be allowed to do this from the beginning, like that's like,
well,
the fact
you
that
know,
it's clearly been going on for years and it's never been brought up is odd.
sure. I mean, and again, he's always been about promoting a specific image of himself. So whenever people say, "Oh, this is so unfair," well, the problem is you presented this image, Clarence, of yourself of being a guy who likes to prefers to vacation in an RV with his equally terrible wife, who likes to be in real America amongst real people, away from DC, away from the elitists. But instead, that's all a fraud. Instead, you spend a lot of your
Oh yeah.
time with this billionaire at his, uh,
And his wife. No, sorry.
Nazi retreat.
My brain went to a Gilligan's Island place. But
That guy was he was just a millionaire.
it's like we're talking, sorry, you're talking about like boats and yeah, no, he was just a millionaire. But
Taking a cruise with random people. I don't understand this cruise.
no one understands cruises.
Well, as a private, so it would be I'm sorry, everyone, but I have so Gilligan and the skipper are doing this little tour. Like that's what you and I would take, right? Like
Yeah,
this burnt out sea captain and
yeah.
me. We're on vacation as friends. And it's like, oh, this will be cool. They'll take us around, Newport or whatever. Fine, let's go on that. But
Harlan
like,
Crow would not be on the SS.
like, why is the
Or
wait a
a
minute?
movie
Why
star.
is a billionaire and her wife and all her stuff on this like rinky dink thing? Like I got these tickets online, right? Like it's not, and a movie star like who's famous, like there's no, oh, and there's Emma Stone.
Yeah.
Like I've done a lot of tour. I'm a guy who loves these boat tours, and I love the architecture tour in Chicago. It's one of my favorites of the tours.
Everyone loves the architecture tour.
And thank you for saying I'm not special, Robin.
No,
But
you're very special, Stephen. I always tell you that.
but we're going. But like, I just don't. That is not what I've never been on a tour and been like, oh look, there's this major film star or this billionaire. Like that just doesn't. That's not.
Yeah,
I've never
no.
wanted that.
Like, I mean, I feel like you would be Marianne in the or the professor.
Marianne, that yes,
The professor. You could no, you would be the professor. I was just thinking Marianne because of the shirt.
yes. It just seems
Like,
the professor, the Mary,
I mean,
and the rest, is the tour,
Yeah.
but not the movie star and the
Yeah.
things. So
I'm clearly the Ginger in this scenario, or Mrs. Howell. I'm either Ginger or Mrs. Howell, I think.
really, that is you. You are a millionaire's wife or a movie star.
Yes,
Who
obviously
herself,
I like sequins. Like,
well, in the '60s, a millionaire was a
yeah.
bigger deal because feminists could then argue, well, wouldn't a movie star be a millionaire? But I don't think movie
Yeah.
stars were making millions of dollars at that point. She was probably comfortable, but she was not yet a millionaire. So it was a pointless. I don't think it was a pointless digression. I think we all learned a little something from this. So yeah, I mean, there's nothing that can be done of this other. I do think that harassing Clarence Thomas, making him look bad, is great if it makes him he doesn't enjoy it. So we need to do things that Clarence Thomas does not enjoy while he strips away our rights. Like he should like choke on his, unicorn steak at his private island. We want to make it that he's very uncomfortable.
Yeah, no, that is, I think, an excellent plan. One thing that I was going to note though is that, like, as you know, a case could be made that no matter what, Clarence Thomas was going to vote for terrible things. Like there was never going to be a scenario where he didn't. But I feel like even the other terrible judges sometimes have things that they'll vote on where their votes aren't that bad. Like some of them have like
Mhm.
free speech things where they'll, vote more liberally on free speech issues, or like search and seizure things like that. But he pretty much goes no matter what with the bad opinion. Like there's never like a scenario where like, whoa, Clarence Thomas surprised us. And
No, he's
I'm
he's
not
a he's
saying
quite the
that
hack.
otherwise, but the fact that this guy is like, being his sugar daddy.
Well, let me ask you this, Rob. Isn't almost it feels like it's about collecting things. So it's a guy who's a
Yeah.
collector. It
Oh
just
yeah.
rounds up. I just own a Supreme Court justice. I get off on it. Like and almost to the point of having someone who's telling you what's going on, even if you aren't,
Yeah.
but
Oh
you're in
no.
the
Yeah.
room. You're in the room where it
Like
happens, to allude to like
insider Supreme Court trading.
he's like, oh, I'm hearing about this stuff. That's really cool for someone who has he's done nothing of him, that this makes him feel important. And
Yeah.
it's pathetic. I mean, I think there was a literally a recent Star Trek episode where it's like the struggle between good and evil
Mhm.
in the android Data's mind between himself and his evil twin, and he has his memories, his mementos are just his friends, good times he's had, and his evil twin just that's meaningless. What matters is power and symbols of conquest. And it's like, oh wow, this is literally like
He's
Harlan
gonna
Crow
put
is
like,
someone who's gone through life never being like, no, 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 you're the bad guy. All of art and literature, and you've talked about this. Maybe this is why conservatives feel this cultural resentment and hate a lot of literature, because either they just feel constantly like they're being told they're the bad guy, and instead of getting the hint, they just feel like, oh,
yeah.
you're just saying I'm the bad guy all the time.
Yeah. Well, they're inured to it.
Yeah, it was just sort of, well, why?
Like in
What
their minds, you're
joy
like,
do you
well, no
get out of
matter what
this?
I do, you're gonna say I'm the bad guy, so I might as well be super evil. Um, yeah. I think that like they just assume that we are gonna say that no matter what, and so no matter what, they say no, we're fine. Which
Um,
really Democrats don't do. They're not gonna. They love like having the chance to capitulate and be like, oh, they do have a they have a point there. They love because it's the great. They like to feel gracious.
yeah, and it's similar to the idea of like when they like the idea of Republicans policing their own, and that makes it so in their mind it would be Justice Roberts who's doing this, as opposed to for Republicans, it's all about exertion of power. We have the power to make you do what we want or not do anything. So why should I care?
Yeah, sorry, I just got distracted for a minute. Um, can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
No, it's just they feel like they have no for them it's the exertion of power. So like
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I don't have to I can remove people from committees because I have the power to do it. It's like the expelling the folks into the sea. And we aren't going why would we police this guy? Why would we ask him to leave? We gain
Yeah, it's
nothing
going
from
well
it.
for them.
We gain nothing from it. So why would we bother? Um, and so the only and yeah, and there aren't enough votes to remove Thomas. All you can do is make life miserable for him, or I guess he can't serve if he's, you know, arrested or something. So maybe they find a true that he truly broke the law, but whatever case, ruin him as much as you can. That's the way to do it, but you're not going to shame him or get him off. He's like a terrible human being.
Basically, yes.
So I think we were going to wrap up on this, and then later perhaps chat separately for a special bonus thing tomorrow about the whole concept of retirement and retiring with dignity, stuff that liberals should believe in, right? Like our whole thing is about that, right? So we will
Yeah.
we will regroup, and then we'll see all of you again tomorrow. But thank you,
Yes.
folks, for
So don't assume I'm wearing the same outfit 2 days in a row.
Yes, that won't be what's happening. All right. Talk to you soon.
Bye. Have a great day.